I'll be talking to you guys about real throughput versus lab-generated throughput. To get a bit of a sense of who's here, are any networking vendors present?
Any what vendors?
Any next-gen firewall vendors?
Sophos could
How
be.
many do we have?
One firewall vendor?
I suspect there's more online than in the room. So.
Fair enough. The people online, can they respond back, or is it just one way?
Yes, they can. Yeah.
Ah, perfect. They're responding to you. All right, perfect. First of all, I've used some data from real vendors. I have not included the names, but if I use yours as an example, it's not as a way of an attack, but just to, convey how reality actually works. So we're going to be looking at the firewall testing gap of real throughput versus lab-generated throughput. Now, I might be using synthetic traffic and operational traffic interchangeably, but it's the same thing in my opinion. I'm going to ask an elementary question. Why do we need to test next-gen firewalls at all? Any ideas? Not all at once? Okay. Security products need to be tested. Any other ideas? No one? Tough crowd. It's going to be a very interactive workshop, very interactive talk. So I'm trying to warm you guys up for what's coming. Any ideas? There are no wrong answers.
Oh yeah, there are wrong answers. There are wrong answers.
Well, which bit? I mean, do you mean security or performance?
Just anything at all.
Well, yeah, test marketing claims, I suppose.
Okay, marketing claims. What else do you guys think?
So customers can compare.
That's a very good one. As a customer, you want to compare one vendor with another. And I have a few more. To validate the security effectiveness. How well do the security features actually work? You also want to test the performance under load. If I push out 1 gig, 2 gigs, 3 gigs, how does the firewall actually perform under pressure? You also want to compare the vendor's claims. If the vendor says, oh, I can do 100 gigs under these circumstances, can it actually perform it under these circumstances? And they would want to have a third party test these claims.
Or you could also have validate security effectiveness under load as well.
Yes.
That changes.
Yes. You're jumping way ahead of me, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Be interactive.
Yes, it is going to be interactive. Please stop me anytime. We want to understand operational limitations. And I'll name a lot of examples. I will never name names, but I had a vendor come to me once and said, okay, we can do 40, 50 gigs of traffic. We said, okay, fine, fair enough. We've upgraded all of our kit. We got 100 gigs. I got Simon to spend loads of money to make sure that we were not the bottleneck. When it came to testing, they couldn't push out 1 gig. We said, okay, you can't push out 1 gig. They said, okay, maybe you need to look at the modules. Maybe you need to look at the link. We changed every single part used in that test. Still couldn't get it to work. At the end of the day, they found out that actually when it's put into a real operational situation, there was a bug which prevented the product actually pushing out traffic. So in doing so, you're also helping to improve the product. And you reduce risk of deployment. Now, this is the part where I say, if this is your product, please don't see it as an attack. I just need it to have an actual data sheet. If I look at this actual data sheet, it tells me that, okay, this firewall can push out 1.5 Tbps. At threat prevention, it can push out 1.44. With IPS, it's 400 gigs, and connections per second are 7,200,000. If I'm looking at this information, what is it not telling me? Any ideas? What information? You're looking to buy a firewall.
I think what we're seeing here is, I think what you're saying is, as you turn on firewall protection features, the throughput levels drop. Right? So to clarify that to begin with. But then we're not knowing what protocols you're using.
Exactly. If I'm looking at app mix and I'm a client, I have no idea what application mix is used. But there's a lot of stuff that I would want to know as well. What other information is this data sheet not telling me?
If it is stopping something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How effective do the features actually work? It could say, okay, we can push out 1.44 Tbps with threat prevention on, but is it actually stopping anything? And there are a lot of questions that you might want to ask, but the main thing that we want to know is, if you're pushing out 1.5 Tbps, under what conditions is that happening? What is the hardware configuration? What is the software configuration? Which features are enabled? Is inspection taking place? There's so many questions that need to be answered. All in all, I would say it's missing context. Now, I have a bit of a simulation that I want to exercise with you to show you guys the difference between synthetic traffic and operational traffic. I have my assistant there, Anila, that's going to demonstrate how this works. Now, assume that you guys are all features of the firewall, right? And I'm going to take Simon as you're going to be threat prevention. The gentleman next to Simon is going to be URL filtering, and the gentleman next to him is going to be advanced malware prevention. Now, these three are the only ones that are allowed to drop malicious traffic. If you see a round ball, one of those round balls, assume it is regular traffic. If it is flat on any side, assume it is malware and you can drop it. Now, I brought in all these toys because I'm a newly mom, and kids really put things into perspective. They can break things you did not think could break. So I brought in my son's toys to actually mimic how a firewall actually works. So again, what are we doing? We're passing on the balls from this gentleman over here all the way around the table to this gentleman. If it's malicious traffic, we drop it. If it isn't, we pass it on. Deal? All right, let's go.
There you go. There's more.
There's a lot of latency. Lots of latency.
1.5 trillion of these coming.
Faster.
Faster. Oh, wow.
I found the bottleneck.
We're under load now. That's the thing. Oh, no, drop packet. Leave it.
We have a packet loss.
All right, now we can stop.
There you go.
There's a bottleneck right there.
Yes, there is. There you go. There you go.
I saw a lot of drop packets, and a lot of packets being picked back up. All right, now it didn't go as planned, but I would say I see no malware on my end. So that's good, well done. Now, here's the thing.
Something else happened though.
Yes, sir.
I fully understand. So the threat detection product part detected these two obviously threats, but this came through and it's got a flat bit.
Good one.
So according to the rules that you gave me,
Yeah.
I stopped it, but I don't know if that should have gone through or not.
Should have gone through, but it's okay. You detected something that was flat and it wasn't completely round. But could be. Now, question, is there any malware that went from Simon to the next module? No? Okay, everything was stopped at Simon. Perfect. Now, when we have known signature and we're sending out lab-generated traffic, it's pretty easy to detect, right? All the packets are the same size. Everything goes smoothly up until it comes to a known signature. Now, what happens when I have different packets, different sizes, and the signature is unknown? Now, I have, for that demonstration, I have those toys. And I'm not going to tell you what the malware looks like. Now, you actually have to put the work in it. You have to find the malware, do deep packet inspection, and move on. Now, I'm going to give you 3 things that you can use. You can tell, only Simon or the 2 gentlemen can tell Anila to slow down, to stop, or to drop. So that's the only 3 things that you can tell her to do. Stop, drop, or slow down. All right, but you have to inspect the packets yourself, and I want to see what ends up on my end. There is malware in between. I just won't tell you what it looks like. Let's go.
Okay. This is very intriguing. Okay.
I'm seeing something very interesting. I'm seeing some packets just staying there in
They've,
some
they've
places.
decided that their threat protection is
Okay, so we're not stopping. We're just carrying on, and some packets are being delayed elsewhere on in the firewall process.
Well, it's really key traffic, so there's no.
All right, we're going to stop, and I'll just wait for all the traffic to come on my end. Simon's not doing a lot of inspection here.
Your son might be missing some toys.
All right, now I have a question. Why is some traffic still in the system? All right, now the question was, who was allowed to check the malware? Raise your hand. Perfect, and it stopped there.
Here, yes.
How come?
Just testing it. I just wanted to challenge you.
Okay, I'm curious to know, why was it malware?
Because of the shape, because of the form, because of just abnormality, something. Just made me wonder why.
Okay. You're right, but you're not right at the same time.
Go
It's
ahead.
malware for a different reason. I'm missing a lot of things, mind you. So I also see that over there. Why was it stopped over there?
Oh, because it's obviously obfuscating.
I didn't look at it that way, but yes, I would say so. But in this case, it is legitimate traffic. I also see, I think it's the ambulance. Why is the ambulance there?
Police.
Oh, police officer.
And because as someone who is ex-law enforcement, police are always suspicious. So
That's a good point. Fair enough.
All right. It didn't go as smooth as possible though. But I have to say, no, there's something else here. Why is this one here?
Oh, I still want to throw it on the floor.
You want to try it on the floor? All right. You guys were almost successful in stopping all the malware. Now the monkey was malware because I put something in his armpit that didn't belong there. Yeah, my son ripped it open and I put something there to hide something in there.
Right.
The
Then,
butterfly.
yes.
Yeah. The butterfly is malware because I wrote something on one of the labels. Very small to see.
Subtle,
Yeah, very subtle. And this book over here is also malware because I wrote something on this label. There you go. Overall, you'll notice that when you push out real traffic and you put it in an actual operational environment, you have a lot more stress and you're actually testing the performance of the device to its fullest. If I have to compare lab-generated traffic with real traffic, what would you say the differences are and why do we still need them? Don't look at this slide, mind you. I'll just wait here.
What's the question again?
So if I look at lab-generated traffic and I look at the real throughput that we're pushing through, why do we still need lab-generated traffic? If we're saying, okay, real throughput is what we actually need, why do we still need lab-generated traffic?
You might want to represent a mix of different protocols.
Volume.
Yes, that's a very good one. The limitations that we have with sending out real throughput is the volume. If you have a firewall that can push out 40 gigs or 100 gigs, I'm not going to go to Simon and say we need a link, an uplink of 100 gig and have our ISP rank up the bill. It's very hard to replicate real traffic if you're pushing out real volume. So lab-generated throughput is still valuable, but it's valuable for more than one reason. You can repeat it over and over and over and get the same result. You can compare vendors with each other without saying, okay, you have circumstances that you did not take into consideration. So there are many reasons why we still need lab-generated traffic. And to be honest, if I look at the industry, they're becoming really good at mimicking real traffic. It still has its limitation, but if I look at, for example, Cyberflood, they are able to put in real applications. They are able to do SSL inspections. They are mixing behavior. You have different protocols that are coming out pretty much on a quarterly basis. I can't call it Spirent anymore. I have to call it VLV Cyberflood. And they're able to push out real scenarios. Now, the only thing that I would have against it is the limitations, where it comes to show that firewalls are becoming more sophisticated, where they can recognize when traffic is real and when traffic is actually not real. I already mentioned some of the pros when we have lab-generated traffic. It's repeatable, it's measurable, it's scalable, it's controllable. You can compare with different vendors, and it's useful for benchmarking. When it comes to real traffic, human behavior is very unpredictable, and it's a big one. If you look at the main reason why we have any attacks being successful, it's usually social engineering. So human unpredictability is a huge thing when it comes to pushing out throughput. Then you have policy sprawl and east and west traffic. If I could name an example where east and west traffic showed its real influence, is where I tested a firewall and I did lateral movement. And when I did the lateral movement, I extracted that file from the system. And the vendor came back and said, oh, but we can't see that file because it's under a certain size. Well, I said, in real life, it doesn't matter what size it is. If I want to extract a file that's 1 kilobyte, I should be able to do that, and you should be able to detect it. So in real life, in real traffic, when you push out real traffic through, you notice that there are some faults with the next generation firewall that you would not be able to see if you were pushing out lab-generated traffic. If I'm pushing out lab-generated traffic at 1 gig, it's not going to send a file of 2 MBs. It's going to send out big files. If I look at long duration of instability, how does the firewall cope if it's been lagging or slowing down, which I didn't see anybody do, mind you. I saw you guys hold the packets, but nobody said slow down or stop or let me inspect it. You just carried on. What happens if simultaneous incidents happen? Now I've told you guys what the signatures were. You looked at the signature, you dropped it when you dropped it, and you passed on. But now that you have to actually look for the signatures, you were like, what should I do? Do I have 1 malware? Do I have 2? Do I have 3? You are kind of guessing and trying to think, okay, maybe this is a malware because X, Y, Z. Burst traffic patterns and real behavior of application and protocols. Now, if I have to name an example here again, is where we have lab-generated traffic and not behaving in real life. So I had a vendor, and the vendor by heart could do 40 gigs of traffic. And we were sending out RDP protocols. Now, in real life, you would send an RDP protocol, but you would close that session after a while. The lab-generated traffic tool that we used would send out RDP protocols, open sessions, open sessions, open sessions, but it wouldn't close anything. So the next generation firewall noticed it and said, you know what, this is suspicious. I'm shutting everything down. But it was legitimate traffic. So who do you fault in that scenario? Do you fault the tool or do you fault the vendor? Should the vendor have allowed it, or should the tool behave more realistically? The same could be said about SMTP. I saw that SMTP sessions were being opened, but none of them were being closed. Again, the firewall saw this as suspicious and just closed everything down. It puts us as a testing lab under a bit of a weird position where how do we mark you? Do we mark you down, or because you actually stop something that is suspicious, or do we say, okay, you're not marked down because it's actually not suspicious? It's a bit of a weird one. So that's where you see the limitations that come from a lab-generated traffic. All of this brings us to the validation gap. As I mentioned before, we still need both. Lab-generated traffic is useful to see what a firewall can do. Is it repeatable and does it work? That's just the gist of it, the plain, simple gist of it. When it comes to real throughput, you actually put your firewall to the test. Will it still work on Monday? Will it still work after a patch? Because that's an important thing. Things can break, configurations can change. Does it work during a ransomware attack? What does it do after the ransomware attack? What does it do after failovers? And what does it do after a cloud outage? I had one firewall that had one of the modules was in the cloud, and the cloud stopped working. Then it passed on every single malware, but then whose fault is it, you know? You can't test these things if you have only lab-generated traffic going through. The real debate, honestly, isn't whether lab-generated traffic should be replaced by real traffic, but how close can you get synthetic traffic to operational reality? And to be honest, it's getting closer, but it's not there yet. The gap is still there. Our perspective as a testing lab is not that synthetic traffic is useless, but it's no longer sufficient to represent operational reality. This is why SE Lab is trying to test as the real hackers, and we're trying to do things as they would be done in real life. Now, I have a small discussion, I promise I won't take too much of your time, where I want to separate us in groups of, let's say, 3, max 4. Group A is going to be the first 3. Your question is, what security features are non-negotiable in your environment, assume you have an environment, and why? The next 3, would you rather block every threat with a lower throughput or maintain speed with reduced inspection, and why? Then the next 3, are benchmark test results reproducible in production? And the last 3 people, how should vendors demonstrate real throughput?
Okay, let's get on with it.
Speed or
So I need both. I need speed. Take a pick. Which answer? Which your answer? Any ideas?
I would say one way to demonstrate it is through testing. Yes.
If the people online want to participate, they can as well. Just let us know what the answer is.
They've been pretty quiet so far, but I'll message them.
Okay.
Maybe
I'll clean it.
just run stuff here and stuff.
Take a potential customer to an actual customer and say, look, well, yeah.
Demos, benchmarks will be trials, whatever.
Help us. Here, use this. We've made this claim, show it. So I don't know. I think that's where I always text. Yeah. But it's all confidential. Yeah. Yes and no. Yes. No, because I guess you can use simulation.
Sure. It will give you an idea. It won't.
keep speed.
This is why we do testing and both.
So what other do you think security?
We are in the second level.
That's right. I feel that your answer is the right one, which is but if you had good speed, let's get the speed.
All right.
Or should we at least report?
Assuming you're using your
The fact you both
Yes.
went point guys.
I don't know whether vendors do that a lot. Probably not.
Diagnostic, is that what you said?
And sometimes you use some vendors do use other customers as showcase. Discount the license. Not sure how that really happens in 2020.
I manage sales, marketing,
Yes, something like that. We'll send you our logs. How things are going on here.
All right. I think we're good to go. I am very curious to know what your answers are. I'll go with Group A. Mind you, if the people online have something to input, please do stop me there. Group A, what security features are non-negotiable in your environment and why?
First was must be able to detect all known threats.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because you can't let known threats through.
Yeah.
The second was
That'd be configurable, because each environment would be slightly different, so have the end user able to configure the product.
Okay.
and a subset of that is exception handling.
Okay. Okay.
Another feature was it must be port agnostic.
Okay. Anything else?
You've mentioned performance, but
Yeah, we talked about
Yeah.
performance, but then
That's
that's not a security
necessarily
feature, so.
All right, fair enough. I do have to. I forgot to share this story with you, and I bring it up because it's very interesting, especially for this topic as well. We had a vendor. It was a couple of years ago where they wanted to test this new feature. It's when machine learning was still on everybody's mind before AI, and they said, oh, our firewall can, do machine learning, and it's a really nice thing, and you should test it out. I said, okay. So I tested out this malware, great, fantastic thing, saw a beautiful pop-up and said, okay, detected, blocked, perfect, wonderful. Now, I don't know why. The same day, I said, okay, let me just wait till tomorrow, and I'll try it out again. And instead of creating a new malware, what I normally would have done, I just double-clicked on the same malware, and it didn't detect it. So I went back to the vendor and I said, something happened, and I tested out the same malware, and it didn't work. And they said, oh, but that's not how our feature works. It detected already yesterday, so you don't have to detect it today again. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense, because if an attacker executed the same attack multiple times, would you only detect it once? So they said, okay. They went back, they went to work, they tweaked their little their device, and they came back and said, okay, test it out now. I tested out 2 days in a row, worked perfectly. And for some reason, I said, you know what? After a week, let me try it out again. So I pressed the button again, pressed it twice, and again, didn't detect it. So I'm back to the vendor and I said, what is happening? The machine learning isn't doing its work. Oh, yes, it is working. You need to go back through the logs from a week ago, and it's going to put it as a second event. And I was like, but if an attacker executes an attack a year in between, what then? Am I, as a user, supposed to go back to the features, go back to the logs from 365 days ago to find out what actually happened? So sometimes we overcomplicate features that actually don't work in real life. Thank you so much. Group B, would you rather block every threat with a lower throughput or maintain speed with reduced inspection, and why?
Well, we were talking about here about the context, right? So it depends on which are your business requirements, and maybe you don't mind if you have a lower throughput because, I don't know, you're a small business or a small office that doesn't have high requirements, but at the same time, we are endpoint vendors, right? So we were saying that maybe better is to maintain the speed and delegate everything on the endpoint.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's a very interesting perspective, and I think it comes back to something that we're doing currently, which is pivot testing, where we're putting together different parts of the whole security chain. It's not just endpoints, it's firewalls, it's everything in between, where if one misses an attack, the other one can catch it. And again, as you mentioned, it depends on the business. If speed is important for you, then you're going to bank on the rest of the chain to actually pick up on the threat.
I think it was a resounding no. It's difficult because from everything, from our experience anyway, the benchmark tests, particularly with network hardware, right? They're done in perfect environments, perfect conditions. Everything is nice and producible and predictable, and it's the theoretical maximum, right? But whenever you put it into a production environment and you start putting in randomness and unpredictability and everything else, then there is certainly from I think our experience, there is a big difference between benchmark theoretical maximum and actual real world throughput.
I have to agree with you when it comes to performance testing, especially, not so much security testing. Security testing vendors do pretty good, but when it comes to performance testing, you notice that what is stated on a data sheet usually isn't what they achieve. And I think everyone, even in the real world, whether it's driving a car or you already have that in mind that, hey, if my car says 65 miles per gallon, I'm probably not going to get that. Same with firewalls. If they say they can do 1.5 Tbps, you're going to come close, but it's probably not going to hit the mark. Unless you leave everything open and say, I'm only pushing out HTTP traffic. Interesting. Group C, or benchmark test. Oh no, I already mentioned Group C. Then I'm going to Group D. How should vendors demonstrate real throughput? Now, this is the real banger.
Oh, is it?
I think it is. Because, yeah, not to put any pressure on you.
Well, we said you could hire a test lab to perform a demonstration for your client. You could
provide a product to test in advance. You could say, here,
trial.
use a demo version for a week, actually prove it. Because the clash here is between vendors' claims and vendors being able to demonstrate things. And that's why independent
Do you mean
testing is-
provide the firewall to a real client? Or
Yes.
Yeah, right. So a POC kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And say, we've made these claims, demonstrate it in your own environment, and that's the way to actually prove it in your environment.
Yes.
But then I
You
have
could-
a
you could
follow-up
persuade-
question.
You could persuade one of your existing clients to allow the potential client to come and look at their setup and throughput as a kind of case study.
Fair enough. But then I have a second question, and this is pure out of curiosity. Why are vendors then so hesitant to share the figures of real throughput?
They don't really know.
That could be one of them. What we found is when we test performance for next-gen firewalls, if you look at our website and you look at our reports, only the security reports are reported. When it comes to performance reports, they're like, yeah, let's not do that. Which I think is a shame because we all agree that, hey, we're probably not going to reach the benchmark, right? But then once we tested the real performance, why is everyone so hesitant to say, let's put that report out so the client could see, hey, this is what we can actually do. This is what the real circumstances are. This is what the context is.
Because it is still only in your environment.
That is fair, but if we're using the best case scenario or the, what do you call it? Lost the term. If we're using the setup that the vendor gave us, they should not be scared to actually publish the results.
And the same tools, they use the same tools
Exactly.
that we use as well. So we can't get any closer. I think it's a marketing disconnect with the engineers. If you talk to engineers, they're like, this thing obviously isn't going to do a terabyte a second. And the marketing people are saying there was this one time when it did, so we're going to say it's almost like saying up to, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like using the words up to.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's also with testing, it's a kind of a self-perpetuating thing. If nobody's being tested, nobody wants to be
That's
the first
true.
one to come out and say, here's
That's
my
true.
number.
That's
because
true.
no
It's
one
not as good
else
as
is
Yeah.
claiming it to be.
Yeah. That is true.
There should be some kind of group test of files.
If only.
That is true. I have a closing discussion for you guys. And this is not because I'm reinventing the NSA test, but also curiosity. Now that I have all the vendors in-house, I do want to get your perspective on things. If I have two firewalls, both claiming to do 1 Tbps, how do I determine which one actually performs better in my environment? So in other words, what am I going to look at? What is important for me?
Well, Solandra, we can have a private meeting in public now because I was talking to the client yesterday who is doing exactly this.
Really?
Yes, so they want us to help them choose a specific speed of firewall. And the questions I'm asking is, what's the environment look like? Is it internal or is it internet facing? Because that will affect the kind of threats that you're going to care about. And what do you think your throughput needs to be in real life today and then maybe tomorrow? And they were going, well, we probably want to do TLS inspection. I was like, well, you can halve the speed instantly and then halve it again, actually, because you want to turn security features on. So you and I both know that halves the claimed speed and then halve it again. And then the next question I said was the products you're going to use on this network are your own backup systems. What protocol is actually probably written your own protocol? So that was the other question, is what kind of traffic are we going to see? Because again, you and I both know that HTTP, HTTPS, FIX, SIP, Skype, that they all run at different speeds. So those would be the questions I would ask. What are you doing with it?
That's true. I would look at the environment specifically. Again, just like Simon mentioned, it really depends on what you're doing in the business and what kind of traffic you're running through the business. You can have the best firewall in the world, but if it doesn't fit in your environment, it's pretty much useless. Again, I'm not saying that lab-generated traffic is bad. We're just moving towards where we're needing to use both and look at it from both perspectives. The future of firewall validation. Synthetic traffic remains essential. Operational realism is increasingly critical. The challenge is balancing the two. Performance without context is only part of the story. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.